Okay, so I took a quick break just to figure out exactly what direction I'm going with this code. So I'll pull this onto the screen. Now is a good time to maybe actually create your file. I think I'm about maybe 20 more minutes away from actually posting something in the comments. I'll probably post the code up until now. Well, actually, we'll see about that. But anyways, you want to create a new file. Name it anything you want. You can see what I'm going to name mine. What I'm going to do for now, basically using this file more like what you call a scratch pad, or what other coders call. I'm just putting testing stuff out in here. So anyways, we have this this big old statement here. I'm gonna copy, let's grab it all and put it all in here. Just name it grid. I almost want to restart the lesson because of the sirens, but I realize that there'll be another one probably in about another 15 minutes anyway, so I'll just roll with it. Okay, so as mentioned, this solution doesn't quite satisfy our needs. I'm going to open up that window if I still have it open, or just in my other monitor here. So here, I'm just going to take another one of these into, I'm going to see if this is the same as what we saw before. This one's not quite as easy on the eyes, but as you see, I'm just going through. Actually, sorry, this is absolutely not what I'm looking for. Okay, let's see if this kind of tells us what we're doing. So as you recall, I cut my code short. I really want 48 in there for 0. So let's see, if code is x is less than 48, so that means if it is 48, it'll catch it. So if x is greater than 47, we'll change that. So we've now got 0 worked into our code. So now when we load this, I'll go back to AutoCAD, type test1. Let's see if, oh, it's still doing bad value. Let's see. Okay, I'll try to see why that's not quite working. So we'll do our check. So as I mentioned, sometimes when your code doesn't work as you expect, it could be you just have an actual syntax error and it's not loading. You always check the build output. I'll get it out of the way. But that'll give you a hint. And just like in AutoCAD, how people don't read the command line sometimes, it's easy to miss stuff in there. Same thing can happen with this. In fact, I think I know the problem. Oh, because I named it grid. Okay, so note that I just changed my function reference there. Okay, so let's do that. So just to let you know, with this lesson or tutorial, or I'm going to load that again. Oh, it's not letting me. Overwrite that. But yeah, what I was saying is that with this lesson, I'm not really worried about it, how much time it takes, just as a heads up. So I'm going to rename that test2, see if that works. Okay, there we go. So just the test2 command, I've incorporated 0 into there. So as mentioned, let's see where we're at, just review things. So test2. Okay, so all the numbers are working. 9 is working, yeah. 0 is working. And it takes in multiple numbers, so letters are working. A to Z. Let's just go through and just make sure all those capital letters and lowercase letters are working. Oops. Let's try that again. Okay, I think I found another bug. Let's try Y. Okay. So let's pull this back in. Go back to this where my lists are stored. Let's click on this. Yeah, so I'm not really afraid of doing a little bit of bug testing as I go. So 122 should be lowercase z. So let's go in here. X is less than 123. That's the problem. Kind of confusing with two files floating around here. So I'm going to change this to 123 and load that back in. Test 2. Okay, so the problem we have, however, is that if I do ZZ, it's taken in 2 entries. So anyways, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about problem, like what's going on here. So I'm building the brains of the program first. I already have the concept of the whole code in my head, but I got to do the, the heavy lifting first, all the functions and everything. So what I want is that I want for the user to be able to enter a numeric value of any number of digits. You'll probably only need up to 2 digits. I don't think you'll have over 99 grid bubbles unless you have a really large project. Same with letters. I only want letters to be, actually not same with letters. Letters, I only want them to be 1 character long. So now we have to incorporate something that's going to make that feasible. So anyways, we have our flag value, just this test string. We get a string. We have MapCar, Lambda. Have our condition in here. And I'll just explain how this works. So MapCar is a statement that takes in a function. That function can be anything, like it can be 1 plus, for example. That just adds 1 to a number. So you could plug in a list and it would add a numeric list like of integers and it would add 1 to each number. You can append something to a list of strings, stuff like that. But if you have a more complex function, then you have to make a Lambda statement. And then the other thing you could do is you could actually make your own function. I could copy and paste that. I could put defun function name, put it here. So I could actually plug the function name into here. I'd get rid of most of this. I believe I'd still have this if I had an argument. Or sorry, I'm explaining that wrong. Yeah, okay, so my function name would go here. And this X is just a random. This can be named, for all we care, cheeseburger. But we name it X is a common convention or sometimes item. What X actually is, so if I go down here, I have this VL string to list, test string. So what I'm doing is whatever I put in as my string, so let's do that test 2 again. Let's enter 1, 2, 3. So of course, as you just watched, test string, if I do the get string and I enter 1, 2, 3, I'm entering 1, 2, 3, but as a string, not as a number. So that string gets passed into MapCar and turned into a list. Sorry, not passed. Oh, yes it does. Yes and no. So anyways, I got my test string converted to a list. And each item in that list is represented by X. So it iterates through the list. So we'll do that one more time. Let's move this over here. So now it writes that out 5 times. To make this easier, I should put a space between these. I only really need a space in front of them. Actually, that's going to cause me problems. Sorry, I was just messing with my code on the other screen. So anyways, what you're looking at is an iteration through a list. So I'm not explaining it very well, especially when using a sub function, but I'm gonna show you how to use it like that probably later on. I could do a quick example, but the best way would be go to AutoLISP and just check it out. But yeah, so anyways, all MapCar does is it takes a function, which can be a Lambda function, which signifies an inline statement, and applies that function to every item in a list one by one. So we have a couple problems here, meaning that for every item in my list, it's overwriting this flag, right? So as I mentioned, I only want the user to be able to enter a string 1 character long if it's a alphabetic value, whether it's uppercase or lowercase. And what if you want a longer grid bubble name? I'm going to add some provisions for that, but they're going to be prefixes and suffixes. So if it's a letter, uppercase or lowercase, it's only going to be 1 character long. If it's a number, I'm going to hopefully be able to allow a character a virtually unlimited length, but ultimately, even if I had to limit it to 2 characters, I think that would be fine. But anyways, we can take a bit of a shortcut. We can simply make a while statement, make some extra flags, and then maybe 2 MapCar Lambda statements. And I think that should solve our little problem here. So this code doesn't have to be pretty, keep that in mind, it just has to work. And quite honestly, this is a grid bubble with a incrementing value is actually somewhat within AutoLISP strong suit. There's just a lot of knowledge to apply, but it's actually not that hard of a code to write. I've written this code before, but I've used lists as I described earlier. Like one other example I'll use is if we made a list and we did something like A-A, then B-B, and so on, then we could just use increasing increment to decide which member of that list to throw in there. So that's, as mentioned, it takes quite a bit of effort to create something like that. So I'm trying to do it the programmer way, I guess. So we get our test string, and we're going to rename this. I'm going to show you a little shortcut. So let's replace test string with user input. Now flag, I want to name it something else because I want to have multiple flags. One to check for whether it's numeric, alphabetic, or a bad value, and one to check how long the list actually is. Because remember, we're starting off with a string, user input, which used to be named, whatever I had it named before, that test string. And this, since it is a list, it's easy for us to tell how long the list actually is. So anyways, as mentioned, I always just do so this is actually how I code, unless I'm right into the code, always coding almost every day. I will, let's see, AutoLISP, list function reference. Let's see what comes up. So you can do search like that. You're on Autodesk site now, and you can look through this and just look, okay, what do I need? So I am looking for, I think, the length function. That'll tell me, it's literally just the length. Let's see if I can find that. Because I know for strings it's str length, or strlen. Oh, here we go. So returns an integer indicating the number of elements in a list. So what we could do either is make another MapCar Lambda statement, or I could simply add well, first let's some notes here. I think this is a bad value range. For capital letters. Oops, I'm missing a statement, aren't I? I need a... less than 123. So what I need this to say is if greater than x is 122. So we'll test this out later. And I'm just going to review that. That code list. And actually, I like the last list I brought up. Okay, here we go. Here's numbers. Uppercase letters. Those end at 90. 96, 97 should be the start of my lowercase letters. Let's go all the way to Z. So 122 and 123 is the curly bracket, and I don't want that to be an acceptable user input. So greater than 122, less than 123. Our code matches that, so I think we're good to go. Okay, anyways. So we know the length of... Actually, in our visual, since I don't have any local variables declared, so if I put user input here and ran the code, it would actually clear this from memory. But what I'm going to do is just for safekeeping, I'm going to put every variable right there just for now. I'm going to stick that there. So length user input. I think it should be 5 long. That's weird. Oh yeah, because I just changed that, so I gotta, again, load this again. Let's run that command. Test 2. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. There we go. Because user input was nil. Oh right, it's not a list yet, so okay, bear with me. So we're getting the length of this list. This is not a list. This is a list. 5, just like I expected. And if you wanted the length of the string, you just go user input. And that should be also 5. So that's getting the string length, and that's getting the list length. The list is built from the string. So anyways, before I get too far into it, you're probably I kind of fizzled out when I was explaining the, I think it's in their intermediate tutorials. Oh, it's in the beginner tutorials. How about that? Because for me, it was one of the, oh, sorry, it's here, I think. Intermediate tutorials, list manipulation. Advanced tutorials? Okay, it's pretty, for me, it felt very advanced before I used it, but as I started getting used to MapCar and Lambda, remember that Lisp is a list processing language, so these list functions are integral to the language's performance. So this is something you should really, how should I say, kind of, I don't want to say master, but get familiar with it, get comfortable with it, so you can see how they just, you can pretty much plug in any function. Anyway, so if my explanation wasn't that great, please by all means come here and check this out, because it explains it a lot better than I can. You're just going to see it in use. You're not going to see me actually explain stuff thoroughly. So the thing I was kind of wondering, because I've been out of the programming for a little bit, is I was thinking like, okay, if I put my own function there, how do I pass arguments to it? I think, don't quote me on this. Actually, I don't know. Yeah, so that's a little gap in my knowledge, but something I can figure out. Something I don't actually need for this particular application. Another thing, if I ran into that, and you're probably wondering what the heck I'm talking about, so I'm just going to move on. I would simply make a sub function that does all this within the sub function that I can pass the arguments to in a way that I understand. So with any code, you don't have to use something for a certain purpose. You always have multiple solutions. And I think I know our solution to our value problem. So if I have a numeric value, I don't care how long the string is, but if I have a, excuse me, if I have a alphabetic value, I only want that string to be 1 character long. So I know I showed, I said I was going to do the length, but I'm actually going to do str length, and that's a string handling function, not a list handling function, because until we pass the list into this field as string to list, it's obviously a string and not a list. So if you ever wonder, user input, type user input, let's see what that is. str, and that stands for string. If equals type user input str. See if that actually runs. I need the program because I'm going to put 2 statements in here. And don't worry, we're going to get back to the code very soon. I just want to show you. If you ever want to get rid of that second hello, there you go. Okay, so all we have to do is go to our alphabetic. Let's do if str length user input greater than 1. I might have that backwards. Bad value. Actually, this is the simplest solution. So we're going to go like that. So whenever you have a statement like this, copy it, paste it in your console. If greater than, okay, it is. So let's do, so if this is 2 or bigger, then I want it to go true. Yeah. And if it's 1, okay, so we're in business. So all we got to do to ensure that the user cannot enter an alphabetic value of more than 2 characters is just put this after that. So if that string is longer, and I know I'm wasting some resources by setting the flag here, but I mean, with computers as fast as they are these days, even back in the day, the 1990s, when this was first coming out, this code, you'd be fine. So for me, I think readability is more important than code efficiency. For something like this, for a really large application, don't tell anyone I said that. Okay, so anyways, it's going to flow through our conditional statement. So if this condition is true, it's going to set it to bad value. It's going to set it to numeric, regardless of the string length. Bad value. This will set it to capital letter, and then it'll check the string length. If that length is more than 1, it's going to set it to bad value. If it's not more than 1, it's going to stay at this value. So that works pretty good. So bad value between those. So I'm going to bug test this. I don't think there's any problems with it right now, but once the code's finished, we're going to test it and maybe even find something wrong with it. Okay, so I don't need this in here anymore. I don't need that anymore. Okay, so we're able to take in the user input for the string. So we haven't even gotten into inserting the block and manipulating the block, but we're going to do that shortly. So I'm just going to take a quick break, which you probably won't even notice, but just a quick break to plan the next video. Okay, so just stop to do a little bit of prep work, decide what I'm actually going to do in this portion of the lesson. Again, we're kind of building the brains of the code, so you're not going to see much active stuff appearing on the screen just yet. We're going to build the main code, logic, I guess. And then later in these lessons, or whatever you call this, we're going to start building the user interface, and the user interface is just going to be all at the command prompt. I might tack on a dialog box later on, but for now we're just going to keep it as simple as possible. Probably getting a little too complicated already. So I want to show you a debugging trick. This would be really useful if you're using Visual Studio Code as well. What you can do is do this, right click, insert field. I already got it set to Lisp variable, but you can actually, let's say I put all. Scroll down here, Lisp variable. So you can see I think I already have user input there, which happens to be that value as a string, but I can put anything I want in here if it actually has a value assigned to it. So in which case, what else do we have right now? We have a flag. We can throw that in there. How about? So one thing I do, you'll notice in my other videos, I recommend not using blue. The exception to that is if it's a field, I put it as blue because display 0. I decided to keep my field display variable on, just so you know what's a field and what isn't, so it's easier to not overwrite them. And since the background is quite light, I don't actually know how to change the background of a field. I don't think you can. If you know of a way, let me know in the comments, but instead I just changed the text color to blue. And that's if you have a multi-line text object, Oops, I gotta. Unfortunately, that is not multi-line text. There we go. So that's what I was looking to come up. You can actually change that to blue. These are, I exploded some text from up here. This is another lesson I'm working on, so that is now d-text, and you can't actually change individual characters to a different color, I don't think. The text editor is not quite that that advanced. So another thing you see here is this. I just needed a block with more than one attribute. There's a really easy approach to this if you only have one attribute, or slightly easier, but if you have multiple attributes, then you'll need to cycle through a list of attributes using the MapCar or Lambda type deal or some other function. But anyways, let's move along here. I'm going to show you actually how to dig in. And this is important because to get at the attributes, I'm using Visual Lisp. There is a way to do it using regular, what they call vanilla Lisp. I've never done it that way. I've always gone straight to the Visual Lisp methods. The method for getting at attributes is very similar to getting out of blocks, dynamic properties, and that gives you a lot of power later on when you're actually inserting blocks. So when you see a lot of my videos, maybe seeing some sort of a stretch block where I insert it, I just draw it exactly like you would a line, except the block goes the whole distance. That's using techniques similar to the ones I'm going to show in this video. So that's why I was saying I'm going to reveal my best kept secrets. Of course, only a few people will be able to watch that long since this video is kind of done on the fly. So I got this, I guess my background file. I'm just going to type it out because I know I rehearsed. I know what I'm doing kind of. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a new define function. See, let's just call it test3. Now my last lesson you saw me trying to do grid, like name my function or my new command grid. It wasn't working, and you can actually, I thought you could overwrite actual AutoCAD commands, but some you can't, I guess. So I think eventually I'm going to name the main function just GB for grid bubble or something. I'll decide that later, and of course, as you know, you can change it to anything you want, but we're just going to do our function. I'm going to close it off already just so I don't have a mess up later on. So what I'm going to do here is set q user selection. That's my go-to name for a user selection. Dash and ename entity name to VLA dash object. So this is just a function that converts a selection of a regular AutoCAD object or an ename or an entity to a Visual Lisp object. Car and select. So when you use the endSelect function, you actually have two values, the point where you clicked and the object itself. So the reason I do the car first is because I want the entity, not the point. So if I put a list into this, it would crash. So I gotta use car to get the first item of what this returns, which is a list. It should throw me to the AutoCAD screen, and I'm gonna select this guy. So it gives me a VLA object. So type. Show you a little trick here. If you're ever wondering what it reads. So it gives me back a list, right? But if I do type user selection, it should be a VLA object, and it is. Okay, so I got that guy going on there. So what this is going to be eventually is a sub function. We're not even going to have this in here. I might not use this, I might. But we're going to do a VLA-get attributes. This is easier with Visual Lisp, if you can remember the commands, that is. I'm going to show you how to dig through an object. And that's basically the way it goes with... Okay, I got a variant, and variants are weird. AutoLISP is not the most efficient at working with things like variants or safe arrays, as you're going to see shortly, but it does have the tools to get the job done. And remember, once you write your code, once you write your subfunctions, it doesn't really matter. You make a really good subfunction, you never have to touch it. You just plug in your arguments, which this will eventually have, I think, and away you go. Let's do VLA. Let's just do type. I forgot to set that to an object, set Q. Test object. Let's just do that for now, because I want to name my variable something really intuitive. So I just want to variant type test object. Variant. So let's name that attribute. So we're going to pass these through the chain really quickly, so the name's not too important. Okay, so now I got a variant. VLAX variant dash value attributes as variant. I'll put a type in front of that, then we'll do the set Q right after. Safe array. Safe array. I'll make that lowercase just for kicks. Attributes as safe array. Okay, so just slow down a little bit. So we have to go into the block, or first we have to create a selection of our block, which we did here. So we grab the block using the int select, and we grabbed a list containing that block as a AutoCAD entity, along with the point that we clicked via int select. We use the car statement to select only that entity. We pass that entity through this function, which converts it to a VLA object. And now we have an object. I'll show you another good trick. If you put T at the end of this, it'll also list methods. I'll show you what that's all about just in 1 second. So to use these VLA, VLAX functions, it has to be a VLA object. It's not going to work on an AutoCAD entity. So you have to convert it. You can actually convert it, VLAX-VLA object to, and you can convert it back using this. So in code, it's probably not efficient to juggle it back and forth between an entity and a VLA object. But if you have to, that option is absolutely available. So don't, and there are situations where you have to kick it back and forth for various reasons. I can't think of any right now. I can think of lots of reasons you need to convert it to a VLA object. Trying to think, I can't remember why you need to turn it back, but there are situations. Okay, so anyways, that dump object, this little command right here, it's going to list all the properties. If there's a RO, a read only, you don't have access to that specific property, but you may be able to get to it indirectly. So I'm going to scroll down. We're going to get to methods. There we go. So when you add this optional T argument, it'll also list methods. If you don't put that T there, you won't see anything here or below. And as you see, there's a method get attributes, and that's what I used right here. To get the attributes, it shoots out a variant if you want a good explanation of what a variant is exactly in AutoLISP, I'm probably one of the worst people to ask that actually knows how to deal with them. Variants, you just deal with them, and you can deal with them without understanding them too well. When we do this with dynamic blocks, you have to mess around with the variance type, I guess. It's with attributes, you don't have to do that. So anyways, before I get into that, we'll deal with that when we start messing with the dynamic block property. And that's why one major reason I included the alignment is just for that very reason. We'll get to do both of probably two of the most important tasks, I think, when dealing with blocks in AutoLISP. Anyways, we're almost 15 minutes into this lesson, so let's keep plugging away. Okay, so we set attribute as safe array. I think I stored that, but just in case, I'm going to plug that in again. So, I've never done a you can do this on almost any VLA object, I think. Ooh, maybe not. Maybe not. I've never tried to dump a safe array, so ooh. Okay. Well, just for kicks, I'm going to see if I can do this. Okay, so I've misspoke. You can't actually dump every single object, but if you ever grab an AutoCAD object like a line, hatch, anything, any AutoCAD object you can dump. You can also do so I was being a little hopeful there, I guess, but you can actually dump model space. I thought you could dump almost anything, but you can't. We might use this, actually we will use this later. We're going to use one of these adds. I think it's is it not in here? Oh, okay. I've never used this one before. I don't think VLA insert block. I'm gonna look this up. I've never used this before, but anything you want to add, you can do it right here, or you can find it right here. That's mostly every AutoCAD object. Anyways, let's move forward. Okay, so we have our safe array, and safe arrays come with their own set of challenges. So x.safe array-get dim. So think of a safe array like a matrix. You'd have like a list of lists is what people like to call it. So this safe array only has one dimension. Another thing we can do is go to inspect, number of dimensions, and that value is, let's look in there, object reference, and there's our attribute. So we just have to dig our way to this. So we got a safe array, then we got a list with only one object in it, and here is our attribute that we want to mess around with. And sure enough, you can see the text type, the tag string, and the text string. So this is the property we're after. So we're almost there, so bear with me. So there's one dimension. Access safe. Oops, I need my bracket. So this might give me an error. Let's see. Oh, okay. So the lower boundary, or up, wait a minute. Upper boundary is 0. Remember, list or orders start with index 0 in most codes, including. So I'm going to the first dimension, and I'm looking for where it starts and ends. So it starts and ends at index 0, indicating I only have one entry. You're thinking, what the hell am I doing? I'm going to show you. When I mess around with this block right here, you'll see why I went through all this. Because if I don't show you this, you're going to end up with a block with more than one attribute, and your code's not going to work, and you're going to have to dig all the way through it again and not understand why. If we just go through it, understand what we're looking at, then you will never run into that problem. Because I might tailor this code for a block with simply one attribute, but if for some reason you had a grid bubble with multiple attributes, that wouldn't work. So I just want to show you what we're doing. So anyways, we safe array dash get element. Oops. So if you have a multi-dimensional array, you'll have to. So I'm going to just show you. Code's going to crash because I'm looking for a second element and it's not there. Same with these. If I try to get the upper and lower bounds of a dimension that doesn't exist, it should give me an error. So anyways, I'm just grabbing that first entry. What does it say? It says attribute reference. I can also do this, figure out what I'm actually working with because it's not quite clear. If I'm not mistaken, VLA object. So let's do a set Q. So the method we're using right now will only work on a block with one attribute because I'm going directly to it, right? I'm not and there's the property we're after. So I'm just going to pull this off to the side for a second. I think we selected this bubble if I'm not mistaken. So we got a property called text string down there, right? So if we do VLA-put-text string attribute object and test. Let's see if that works. Didn't get an error. Oh, I might have to, there we go. So the only reason it didn't update because I didn't click in the screen. So that is working. So let's start from the top. Let's do the user selection again. Let's select this guy. There's 3 attributes. Let's chase these down again. Still only 1 dimension. Okay, so I've grabbed the new object. I've set this value, the attributes as variant, attributes as safe array. We've done that. So we've done the dimension. There's only 1 dimension still, which makes things a little bit easier. So now we do the get upper bound and it says 2. Let's do the get lower bound. 0. So we're already seeing a difference because remember this block gave us zeros for both those values. This gives us 0 and 2 for this block. And therefore that means there's 3 elements in that object. Test 1, let's do that. Let's jump into there. Okay, so neat, it's selected, I'll show you how I've set this up, right? So it selected the first attribute, or the third one I actually created in order, so that creates a bit of a challenge. So me personally, I don't actually know how to iterate through a safe array. Attributes as list, just make. If I forget to do that, it'll think I'm putting in a function. So attributes as list, VLAX dash safe array list. So it's hard to see, but we actually have a list here now with 3 entries. Let's do a inspect. Yeah. Let's do Lambda. Let's do item this time. Remember, it doesn't matter what you name this, just as long as your syntax is correct. So let's get if equals VLA get tag string item. I think I named it @1. So just something that messed me up when I first came up with this, or I didn't come up with it. I read lots of tutorials and figured out how to code it myself, but don't mix up the tag string and the text string. So the tag string is the name of the attribute. The text string is the actual attribute value. Now, if that's a bit confusing, you'll see what I mean in just a second. I'll explain it again once I move the code window over and we look at Okay, so that's closed off. Close off the Lambda, sorry. Plug in our list. And this, I could close this off and do a routine, but this is just going to be, what I'm going to do is just do a Control X, Control V, Control X. What did I just, oops. Okay, so what I've done is I've made a way to iterate through the attributes as a list that I created here. And if it finds this tag string, the name of the attribute, it'll put this text string, the value of the attribute. I hope. Let's see what happens. If we get an error, it does it. Nil, nil, nil. That might be okay. Perfect. And let's just see, those are the names of my attributes, and those are the values. So if you are targeting a specific attribute and your block has multiple attributes, you're going to have to use an approach similar to this. So I'm just going to show you a little trick. And of course, this comes from reading all the sites and everything available out there, but there's actually a VL invoke, I think. Maybe VLAX dash invoke. Just name this test var. Hopefully this works. Oops. Let's try that. Third time's a charm, I hope. Dang it. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Put that back. Let's see. Bad argument, type, VLA up, get attributes. Okay, so I should be reading that. That gives me a hint that my order is off. I think this will work. Apologies for that. Interesting. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. So that's what I was searching for. This is a little shortcut. However, VLAX invoke has actually, according to Autodesk documentation, has been superseded by this. But that kind of sucks because the VLAX invoke actually lets you go from the object straight to a list of the attributes, which is ultra convenient. So you'll see some of the heavy hitters in the Lisp community, they'll use this VLAX invoke. I noticed that order is kind of funny because normally, I think, what did I do up here? Some of these other functions, I don't know, this seems backwards to me, but nonetheless, this is ultra useful because you get the list straight away, but also I wonder how long this will work like this and if it works in non-AutoCAD programs. But anyways, if you can get away with using this, the VLAX invoke, instead of a lot of this, because look at all the trouble I go to just to process the safe array, right? but we're gonna just stick with this. I'm gonna, oh, excuse me, got a air bubble in my throat. Anyways, we're gonna stick with this. I just wanted to show you this because it is an ultra handy shortcut, because you can also do this with the dynamic block properties. So anyways, between lessons, I'm actually going to clean this up into a really handy subfunction, and I'll probably post that. And I need a quick little break because I'm making lots of little errors, and that means I need to give my brain a quick little breather. So after that, I'll get on with the development of our little code here.